this is just going to be a fact, that you are going to be smarter than 1,000 people or 800 people in general, right? 140 is Einstein caliber, I believe. So you are going to be surrounded by idiots. Now, this is a very important thing. You cannot understand the world unless you look at it through the lens of IQ. Everything seems kind of weird and blurry and so on, but when you put the IQ glasses on, right, suddenly it's like, everything becomes clear, and it all makes a whole lot of sense. So this is really important to understand, that most people are idiots compared to you, right? And I will tell you that it may come across as a lack of emotional intelligence on their part. So you may sort of have the idea that if you just kind of break through people, then they will achieve this depth and they will achieve this understanding, and they will their intelligence will erupt and explode into the stratosphere because you have used the right combination of syllables to unlock their hidden brain power. Do you ever kind of get that idea?
Yeah, in fact, I can. I actually, that's very accurate, because every time when I talk to people, I always say, well, maybe it's me. I'm not getting the information across properly. Maybe I'm not expressing myself. Maybe I'm not. I mean, that's how I think when I talk to individuals, when I try to enter conversations. And another thing that happens is I just can't stand a trivial I mean, it's like the moment I get to work, the moment I open that door, it's like a wall hits me psychologically, and I feel down, because I realize that there's no one there that can offer me a conversation that can stimulate me. And because I'm also a student, I'm basically working 45 to 50 hours in 3 days, Friday to Sunday, so I can study Monday to Thursday. So I'm there.
Okay, so let me just sort of give you an analogy that will help. So if you wanted to be a great boxer, right, and you wanted to train with equals, would it make a whole lot of sense to open the Girl Guide boxing gym where no girls over 8 are allowed, and then think that you could somehow make them into world heavyweight championships?
No, that would be stupid.
Right, so you would get really frustrated trying to box at an equal level with 8-year-old little girls, right? Now, there wouldn't be any kind of moves that you could make that would make them taller and stronger, right? Hello?
Yes, I said yes, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah. Right, so the brain is a physical organ, and the brain, through a combination of genetics and environment, is like 90% developed by the time you're 5, and IQ tests remain very constant throughout someone's life. IQ does not change much over time. We can't really get a whole lot smarter, with one caveat that I'll get to, right? But if you think that the brain is not a physical organ, but you think that there's like a soul, were you raised religious at all?
I was raised religious, but I've been an atheist for about, I'd say, since I was 19. Actually, no, 20 more accurately, since I was 20. So for about 4 years now.
No, you haven't been.
I mean, my mother was very religious.
Look at me correcting the IQ 139 guy. But no, listen, you have not been an atheist because you still believe deep down in the soul. Soul, brother, you believe it. You believe in the soul because you believe that there's a hidden set of brains, right? That are down there that you can just tap into, right?
That's interesting.
Oh, I was correct. 140 is in the top 0.38% of people. I said it was less than a half, right? 0.25. Okay, so you believe that we're all, the soul is that everyone is equal, fundamentally, right? The soul is the ultimate socialism of the species, because with the idea of the soul, everyone is equal, because God creates souls, and God creates all souls to be equal. And so you have, in this atheist theology, if I could put it that way, idea that somehow a brain is not like height, but the brain somehow has this hidden magical potential of brilliance within it, right? And you drive yourself crazy trying to get other people to be as tall as you are, right?
Yes, that would be accurate.
But you know, since you are a secularist and a materialist, and I assume you understand something about biology, the brain is just an organ.
Indeed.
Right? And the brain, like organ, has variability. Like any organ has variability. And there's no greater variability in any organ in the human body. The brain is the greatest. It's the most variability. So very clumsily put. Right? But the brain has the ultimate variability. Right? According to many tests, it varies between species. It varies between the genders, in that men tend to have a broader or more shallow bell curve, which means there are more smart men and more dumb men, right? Whereas women tend to be clustered more around the median, right? Which is why there are fewer women in jail and fewer women at the top of intellectual professions, like in business or science or medicine or whatever, right? Just the way it is, right? And so the brain is an organ, and the brain has evolved like every other one of our organs, and evolution, the races are supposed to have split off, I think, 50 or 70,000 years ago. But even in the last 5,000 years, people living in high altitudes, you can see that they have adapted because there was a sort of genetic population that split off, living high. So it just takes a few thousand years to evolve. The brain is just like every other organ. It adapts to specific circumstances, and there's a wide degree of variability across individuals, across races, across genders, and so on, at least according to the information and you can read more about this if you want. The Bell Curve is a famous book from the 90s by Charles Murray, which can give you that. So, people who are average are like a different species from you. Like a different species. And I think that's really important. If you want to be an empiricist, then you have to accept the science of intelligence, right? The IQ test, as you know, is not linear, right? Right, it's not like somebody with an IQ of 120 is 20% smarter than somebody with an IQ of 100, right? It's an extrapolation. It goes up like crazy, right?
Yes.
And human brains vary in size. And the number of neural connections within the human brains vary enormously in size. I mean, in certain genetic groups, the difference between one genetic group and another genetic group is like a full cup of brain matter. I mean, there's huge differences in brain size. Within groups, between groups, within genders, between genders, and so on. Doesn't mean you don't treat every individual as an individual, of course you do. But the reality is that you're trying to play basketball with people who are 2.5 feet tall, right?
Yeah.
And you need to accept that biological reality. This is what I mean when I say that you're still kind of a theist, in that you believe that everyone has some potential to grow their brain, and generally this is not the case, right? When you are 18, you are as tall as you're ever going to be. You can eat a whole lot more food, but all you'll get is fat or not tall, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, accepting the reality of the difference in brain size, in IQ, in neural connections, and so on, is really essential. I used to think that people were just emotionally defensive, and that's why they were dumb. Like they'd get some piece of information that contradicted their worldview. Thought be gone! I've got the spray. Taser! That thought, it's approaching my core zone of identity, right? And so I thought, well, okay, if I get people to overcome their emotional defenses, then they'll be smarter. But the problem is that It takes intelligence to overcome emotional defenses. It takes intelligence to understand why it's important to overcome emotional defenses. And dumber people, in my experience and opinion, have a much shorter horizon of what they will be willing to sacrifice, right? A much shorter horizon for the deferral of gratification, right? So a dumb person, when faced, or an average person, when faced with information that contradicts their core identity, a smart person will say, well, I guess it makes me feel uncomfortable, but I wonder why, and it's more important to be accurate and to believe in the truth than it is to be emotionally comfortable, so I will sacrifice my short-term emotional comfort for the sake of my long-term intellectual integrity, which leads you to happiness and to integrity, consistency, all the good things that we want. Now, average people, they can grasp that if you accept or are willing to explore information counter to your viewpoint, that is going to be better for you, even though it's uncomfortable in the short run. They can't process that. It's sort of like saying to someone, you shouldn't eat your favorite food because it might give you health problems in 300 years. Now, if somebody said that to you, what would you say?
Well, I'd say stupid.
I think I'll take the risk, right? Because we don't live for 300 years, and so not eating my favorite food because of health problems in 300 years wouldn't make any sense. So I'm just going to continue to eat my favorite food, right?
Yeah.
So being able to empathize and project yourself forward in time and be able to act in a way that is beneficial for your future self, no matter how uncomfortable to your present self, is beyond the capacities of most of humanity. And you can just see this from the diet industry, right? I mean, everybody says, ooh, lose weight, ooh, you should weigh less, lose weight, and people spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on diets and diet books and crap like that. And the number of people who lose weight and keep it off is minuscule. Most people lose weight and gain more back. Now that's actually pretty easy. Don't eat crap. Exercise. It's not that hard, right? This is not getting a PhD in astrophysics. And people can't even keep crap out of their mouths and their feet on a sidewalk, right? And so they cannot empathize. This is why almost 30 million Americans now have type 2 diabetes, the non-genetic kind, right? Because stuff your faces with crap because it tastes good in the moment, and don't exercise because exercise is uncomfortable in the moment, and don't have any empathy for your future Ella Fitzgerald self that's going to lose eyesight and limbs and all that, right? So most people, when you bring up information that's uncomfortable for them, they don't have the intelligence to look down the road and say, well, I better process this uncomfortable information so that I can be happier in the future. I mean, people don't even have enough brains to take their head out of the goddamn Cheetos bag and go for a walk. And, you're asking them to process philosophical abstractions that make them very uncomfortable. So that is really, really important. Really important to understand that you are surrounded by mostly monkeys. Right? You don't say to monkeys usually, hey, let me make a deal with you, man. You give me this banana now, and I'll give you 5 bananas tomorrow. Or next year. Right? The bananas are like, ugh. And monkeys are like, banana's good. Right? I mean, that's what they do. And most people, I mean, they're mostly monkeys. Confirmation bias, good. Right. Well, it's going to make you unhappy down the road if you keep providing false information and go for confirmation bias and exclude information that's counter to your perspective. No, confirmation bias, good. Confirmation bias, part of tribe. We like tribe. Contrary information makes me uncomfortable and makes my armpits sweat, diarrhea, and therefore confirmation bias, you're bad. Make me feel bad. Oh, banana. Right? This is basically what you're doing. This is what you get constant monologue with. This is all the subtitles that people come with. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, it made more sense than I could ever think it would. I never saw it that way.
Well, tell me, where I'm wrong. I mean, you know that IQ is testable. You know it's highly variable in the population, and you know you're in the top 0.3%. Right?
Yeah, I perfectly agree with you. I mean, there's nothing I disagree with you. It's just
And
now
you
that
can't
I'm a
fix
bit
stupid.
shocked about everything. I'm just realizing now. It's. I mean, now I also realize why I've been doing this. Which is a bit.